All right, guys. So our application is done, except for the fact that the data isn't persisting anywhere. So if we refresh the page or come back to our application, all of our items, everything's gone, and we have to start over. So what we're going to do is persist the data to local storage. So we have this comment up here. This is where our storage controller is going to go, and it's going to be set up like the rest of the controllers. So let's go ahead and give this a variable of, actually we'll do a capital S, storage CTRL, and we're going to set that to an IFI, which is immediately invoked function. So it's going to need parentheses here as well. All right, so this is our storage controller. And I think the first thing I want to work on is being able to store items in local storage. So when we go ahead and we add a meal item, that should get put to local storage. So we're going to have a function here called store item. All right, so we're going to say return, and these are going to be our public methods. So we'll have store item, all right, now before we do anything here, I just want to find out where we're actually going to call this. Not only that, but we want to insert the storage controller into our main app controller, just like we did with the item in the UI. So let's go to, where is it? Right here, app, and I'm going to put this, we'll go item controller, storage controller, UI controller, and then we need to go down to the bottom where it's actually invoked, and put that there as well. All right, so where do we want to call store item? So if we go to where our event listeners are, for the add button, which is right here, it's going to call this item add submit, which is this function right here. So we just need to put it somewhere in here. I'm going to put it right before we clear the input. So we'll say store in local storage, and we could just call storage controller dot store item, and then we need to pass in new item. Now this new item is coming from the item controller here. Once we add the item, we return it to this variable, and that's what we're putting in here. All right, so let's go back up top, and let's not forget to put in the new item that's coming in. And what I'm going to do is set a local variable called items, set it to an empty array, and then we need to check to see if there's an item in local storage. All right, so remember, with local storage, we do local storage.getItem, and we can call it what we want. In this case, it's going to be called items. All right, and then to set the items, we can say set item, and then we can put, whatever we want in here. Now, local storage can only hold strings by default, so before we put something in, because we're actually putting in an array of objects, we have to turn it into a string with json.stringify. Then when we pull it out, we need to turn it back into an object with json.parse. Okay, so that's important to remember. We wouldn't have to do that if we were just storing, single strings, but we're not. So like I said, we need to check to see if there's any items. So let's say check if any items in local storage. So this will be an if else. So let's do if local storage dot get item items is equal to null. Okay, so if it's equal to null, that means that there's nothing in there. There's no items set. So we want that items variable to be an empty array, and we want to push the new item. Okay, so we're just going to take that items, we're going to say dot push, and we're going to pass in the item that's being passed in right here. All right, so up until now, it's still not in local storage. It's just in this local variable. So now what we want to do is set, we'll just say set local storage. So set item, items, and then remember, like I said, local storage holds strings, so we're going to wrap this in JSON.stringify. We're going to wrap items. Okay. Now, the else is if there is something in there, if we already have some items in there. So we need to get those items. So we're going to say items equals, and instead of an empty array, it's going to come from local storage dot get item and items. All right, now remember, by default, this is going to be a string, so we need to wrap it in JSON.parse to bring it back into an object. Like that. All right, and then we're going to push the new item. So we'll say items.push and pass in item. And then we want to reset local storage. So I'm just going to grab this right here, same thing. All right, so let me just reiterate what happened. Actually, let me put a comment here. Get what is already in local storage. Okay, so if there's nothing in local storage, if it's null, then we're going to take this items array, this empty array, push the new item to it, and then we're going to set it to local storage as items. Okay, if there is something in there, then we need to pull what's in there out, okay, which will be our stringified object. Then we're going to turn it back into an object with JSON parse so that we can push onto it, so we can push the new one on, and then we're simply going to reset local storage. So let's go ahead and try this. So I'm just going to put in here steak dinner, and we'll say that was 1100 calories. So we'll add meal. All right, now you can see it down here. Now if I reload, it's going to go away because all we've done here is store it in local storage. We haven't actually fetched it and displayed it. But there's a way that we can check that using Chrome tools. If we go to application and we go to local storage right here. Actually, let me make this bigger. And you'll see we have items. Okay, never mind this stuff. This is actually for another application. This can actually be cleared out, this stuff. Let's see, delete that. All right, so if we look at items, we have ID 0, name steak dinner, calories 1100. All right, so we know that that's getting stored. And if I reload, that's still going to be there. Okay, it's going to be there until we clear it. You could have also used session storage, but that will go away once the browser's closed. All right, so that's good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create under store item. We're going to create a method to actually get the local storage stuff. So we'll call this get items from storage. All right, so first of all, let's go ahead and check to see if there's any items in there. So remember, we say local storage.get item. We called it items, and we're seeing if it's set to null, which means that it's not there. Okay, if it's not there, then we're going to set, actually, you know what we'll do is, let's do let items equals array. And then we'll say items equals, actually, I just want to declare the items here like that. Okay, so if there's nothing there, items is going to be set to nothing, else then items is going to be set to JSON.parse, because remember it's stored as a string, so we need to parse it as an object. And then local storage dot get item items. Okay, and then we simply want to return items. All right, and then up here, I actually want to get rid of this and just declare that, because we're setting it as an empty array here. All right. So now what I want to do is take this get items from storage and call it down here in the item controller. I'm going to replace this empty array right here. I'm going to replace, actually, you know what I'll do is I just want to leave this here for you guys just in case. So I'm going to comment that out and just put in a new items, and we'll set it to the storage controller dot get items from storage, like that, and save. And there we go, there's our steak dinner. All right, let me just get rid of that. So now we have our steak dinner, and it also shows the number of calories right away. And if I reload the application, still there. So let's try to add something else. We'll say ice cream, 500. The ice cream gets added, it gets added to the calories, and if I reload the application, you can see that everything stays. All right, so it's working perfect. Now, if I were to delete this, okay, it gets removed, the calories gets, it subtracts the calories, but if I now reload, it comes right back because it's now fetching it initially from local storage. So what we have to do is when we delete or update or do anything, we also have to reflect in the storage controller, okay, in local storage, or else it's just gonna do exactly what I just did. If I were to update the calories of ice cream to 1,000, okay, it looks like everything worked, and it did in the UI, but if I reload, it reverts back to what's in local storage. All right. So in the next video, what we'll do is we'll handle the update. When we update something in the UI, it needs to reflect in local storage as well.